Hey everyone, welcome back to CK Cycles. Well, it's time to see if I can get this 1989 Honda NX250 that I purchased recently up and running. I think I'm going to have to get into the carburetor to see if it needs to be cleaned out, and I definitely need a new battery for the bike. I'm just going to start off here by removing the plastics, which I'm doing as carefully as possible. They already have a few small stress cracks in them, and I don't want to damage them any further as they're probably hard to find replacements of. Seat came off no problem though, and with that, we're getting into the bike. I want to remove the fuel tank, so I'm going to start here by removing the fuel line. There is still a little fuel left in the tank and in the line. The fuel smelled pretty bad, didn't look very good, so I want to be sure to flush it all out. After removal of the tank, I was able to do an inspection of the interior, and I really didn't find much rust at all to speak of, but I did flush it out completely and then refill it with some fresh fuel for the test run of the bike. Next comes the side cover. This is so I can access not only the carburetor, but also the air cleaner. And when I popped it off and after I dropped my screw, oops, of course, there's a mouse nest in the air cleaner. No big deal. This is found quite often on old bikes that have sat for a while. So with a good cleaning, it shouldn't be any problem at all. I removed the air cleaner here, or the air filter, to find that it is in pretty rough shape. There's quite a few holes in it, maybe from the mice chewing on it, and it's just kind of scummy and nasty. It'll have to be replaced. I wiped the airbox out with a bleach cleaning solution here, just so I'm not having to touch and mess around with old mouse nest while working in the airbox. The throttle linkage is completely stuck on this bike. When I twist the grip, nothing much happens. So I think that the throttle slide mechanism is frozen in the carburetor. Luckily on this Honda, there's an ability here to slide the airbox back about a ½ inch, and hopefully that'll give me enough room to slide the carburetor out. Since the linkages and everything were jammed pretty good and it was difficult to try to remove the cables off of the carburetor while on the bike, I decided to remove the upper engine mount plate here so I could get the carburetor out. With a little wiggling back and forth, I was able to fully remove the carb, which made me feel good. With the carburetor removed off the bike, I had easy access to the throttle cables and their linkages. I removed the throttle cables from the twist grip up at the handlebar to give myself enough slack so that then they could be removed from the carburetor throttle linkage altogether. Once that was completed, over to the bench for inspection and probably cleaning. Carburetor disassembly was pretty straightforward here on this car. I did have to move the mixture screw though, as there is a limiter tab on the top of the screw which did not give enough clearance unless it was moved out of the way so I could slide the bowl off. After sliding the bowl off, I found that there's a lot of varnished up old gasoline in the bowl and all over the carburetor jets and float mechanism. I was really hoping I could just clean all of this with some carb cleaner sufficiently and not have to buy a carburetor rebuild kit. If in the end I have to buy a rebuild kit, no problem, but first I'm going to try to scrub this up as best that I can to see if I can get it operational again. The jets came out very easily on this carburetor, which I was a little surprised about. Sometimes they can be difficult. I also removed the top cap of the carb so I could spray carb cleaner all around the slide, which was stuck in this carburetor. With everything cleaned up and looking good, I was ready to reinstall the bowl. First, I wanted to make sure that the boot that covers the pumper bar was fully seated in the carburetor body, and then I could tighten the carburetor bowl down. After the bowl was installed, I reset the mixture screw to the specification in the service manual, and this car was ready to go to be put back on the bike. After putting some fresh fuel in the tank, verifying oilant and cool levels, and also installing a new air cleaner in the bike, it was time to see if it would run. After cranking on the bike quite a while, I was starting to get an intermittent spark issue. It felt like if I left the bike alone with the key off, turned the key on, and hit the start button, I would get an initial fire and then nothing after that. I verified this intermittent spark issue by pulling the spark plug out of the engine. I would leave the bike sit, turn the key on, hit the button, get a good first spark, and then nothing after that. So I thought I needed to do a little bit more reading and research to see what my next move was. I hooked the battery tender back up to the battery since I had drained it down a little bit and went and did some reading. I found in my reading that the CDI box on this bike can cause a problem. So I took the tank off and accessed the CDI box just to take a look at what was going on. I unplugged the CDI box and then plugged it back in, kind of wiggling the connectors around to make sure I had a good connection. And upon verifying with a spark plug, I now had good consistent spark. So it was time to hook the fuel tank back up and to see what would happen. Since I already had been cranking on the bike quite a bit, there was plenty of fuel that had been drawn up from the carburetor. So when I hit the start button after getting a good spark, the bike fired right up. I began to check around the bike with my laser thermometer here to see if I could tell if coolant had started to flow yet. I was checking coolant lines, cylinder head, everything, just to see if there was consistency and temperature around the system. I sat back and decided just to listen to the bike run. It was running pretty good, so I decided to check for leaks. I was looking for coolant leaks, oil leaks, fuel leaks, anything. I started to see a small bit of coolant dripping from the bottom of my radiator here onto the lift. So I guess I had a little leak that I was going to have to find and address. Another thing I wanted to verify was that the cooling fan switched on automatically after the bike had been idling for some time, and it did. This made me very excited. I decided to shut the bike down before I ran it any further to see if I could find where my coolant leak was coming from. Upon further inspection, I found that my leak was coming from the top of my radiator from the overflow tube that runs down to the expansion tank. That tube apparently has a small crack in it, but that can easily be replaced. So, time to see if a hot start would happen. Everything seems to be working on this bike, which I'm very excited about. I think with a new set of tires, this bike is going to make for a great dirt road cruiser on those hot summer days. Stay tuned here at CK Cycles to see what's next with this 1989 Honda NX250. Please like and subscribe.